أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد. Selamun Aleyküm ve Rahmetullahi ve Berekatuhu. Just a reminder, we are streaming on YouTube, so if you have any issues with your face being visible on YouTube, so just as a note. So inshallah, let's continue with our discussions on Quran. So this is the third discussion. If I'm not wrong, we started with, so the theme, the idea is how Ramadan is the month of Quran. So we started with fasting, how fasting prepares us to benefit from Quran. And then we studied who can benefit from Quran, what is the mindset or what is the soul set we should have when reading Quran so that we can benefit from it. And now, inshallah, we will go a little bit deeper and ask the question, how to read Quran. So if we want to benefit from Quran, how should we read it? How should we approach it? So inshallah, I expect this discussion to be interactive. That means like this is a nice way of saying I couldn't prepare much. So please help me, since I have an excuse, a little one sitting just in front of me right now. Inshallah, we will do it together. So, okay, let's start with the first question. So I have many options in front of me, many books talking about the history, talking about how to become a better person, how to become a better nation, talking about my, the ancestors, how we come up with being in this state and so on. There are many different books, many different sources of knowledge, right? Or if I'm religious, I could say, okay, I am already religious, so all I need to know the law, what to do, what not to do, and so on. So there are all these different sources of information in front of me. There are all these different options to read and benefit from. So the first question is whether Quran is any different than such sources, any different than such books, if we take Quran as a book. And if it is different, how so? So this is the question. I hope you have some ideas on that. Go ahead, please. Yes, Abdurrahman. Oh, Atik, sorry. Because I saw the hand just in front of, okay, it's a long story.
It's okay. I would say the difference between scripture and man-made books is that men and women are subjective, and they see the world and interpret the world through their own eyes, and according to various factors, their upbringing, education, and the context in which they live in, and that all affects how they interpret things. However, the Quran or scriptures, they are we believe scripture is revealed from God, an entity that does not exist within time or space, that is completely objective as possible.
Thank you. So since I said this should be interactive, so I may pose more questions to you. So one great point you made about the author of the books, authors of the scriptures, that there's a difference in terms of their authors. So I guess we should study this more. You said one of them or one set of them are written by regular people, and the other one is written by someone who is not of kind of this universe. So that's an interesting point. The second point, so you say their knowledge is limited, their own views. How about if I add another book there, which includes just mathematical equations, some formulas, I don't know, naming of some colors, or, the things that everybody would agree. So mass of sun or the earth, what is the the temperature at the core of sun, and so on. So it would be another quote unquote objective source, and most of the things it would include might, from my perspective, go beyond time, whatever it means. An abstract notion of mathematics, I may say, it goes beyond time. Regardless of the time, it wouldn't change. So what would you say?
I'd say that, yeah, you can definitely extract or attain some sort of objective truth through mathematics, right? You can go do all these proofs and prove that, I don't know, X is some number or some formula or some equation, and you can have textbooks on science, and everything can be proved in hundreds of studies and whatnot. But that stuff is not really beneficial if what you're looking for is guidance. All that information is just information. This is what the world is, not really why it is. And you're just describing the world at that point. I don't know if that's really helpful.
Alhamdulillah, it is helpful. As you made another important point, is the benefit and guidance. So anybody who knows me well would know that I usually attack people who use words like subjective, objective, try to destroy, their ideas, and then remove ban from the Zoom meeting. But since we don't have time right now, and it's a holy Ramadan, so I will, I will not do this. But other than that, joke aside, yes, we have two important points now. One is about authorship. The other one is about, let's say, purpose. Why I'm reading it. What is my aim? What is my point of reading it? Is it to get some guidance or somehow benefited or not? Any other points? So since I made a mistake calling Abdurrahman's name before Atik, maybe Abdurrahman may take this opportunity to speak. Otherwise, Yusuf, Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
Questions. I mean, it's not extremely clear to me. Sometimes it feels clear, but I'm realizing it's not super clear. Like this divide between, these books of knowledge or information, and then the Quran. Actually, and then what's also not clear to me, it's like, what's the difference between, like, let's say, it's relevant. Like, what's the difference between a prophet and the authors of these other books we see here? you know, these wise people who wrote these books versus the prophet who was the messenger of the Quran. You know, there's like things we can say, like one is knowledge and information, the other one is saying why we exist, potentially. But you know, not everyone who writes these books is a disbeliever. You know, they still might mention God or mention reason or meaning, or they might have some idea of meaning. So like, how is the Quran so much more different than them, or how is the prophet so much more different than these people? You know, this is a question I do have. I'm trying to figure out, and I'm very excited for your presentation, which will help me. I'm seeing, and inshallah, we'll see.
I'm muted. Yusuf, please go ahead. You were about to say something.
I was looking at the titles of the books that you put there. So Why Nations Fail, I'm not that much interested in that title, for example. So I guess How to Be Fine, I sort of figured this out myself. So this is not a title that I would be interested in. Guns, Germs, and Steel, somewhat this looks more like, at least the title seems to be interesting since guns are there. Law of Succession, I don't know what is meant by succession in here, but if it means inheritance, I guess so, somewhat. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not planning to leave money behind. So, and about the people that are about to leave me money, I guess this is their business, not my business. So I don't know. But I mean, what I'm trying to say is, I guess these titles are speaking to a certain type of people. So not How to Be Fine, for example, is not being that much appealing to me. So, but when it comes to Quran, does it speak to me, or like, who am I that it's going to speak to me? I guess this is more of a question about what am I in need of? Because I feel like I'm not in need of Why Nations Fail, but to what extent I know my needs either. So I feel like maybe if somebody tells me something about psychology, I'm going to be happy with it. But it's also an issue that I don't know myself. I do not know me well enough. Because I might also be interested in just books about politics, and I would just fall for them. But would that mean that it's going to be good? So I guess, in short, I am in need of a guidance which is going to speak to me as a human, will define me or teach me or make me realize what I am, who I am. So this sort of an intricate question, first of all, I need to get to know who I am. And then I would like to get a lesson about who speaks to this me. So it's more than just imagining somebody in your mind, okay, I'm going to address such a person. Like Why Nations Fail. Definitely the authors had some target audience in their mind. But I am just a regular person, a unique person, most likely who will never be imagined completely by any authors on earth. Partially, they might be overlapping with my character, but not fully. So is there a book that will address me entirely? I will take the book and say that, oh, this book is from beginning to end, cover to cover, talking about me.
Jazakallah khairan. So, I guess, in short, I'm trying to, to compile the people's what people said. There are different aspects of scripture. So one important thing is the author. What is the expected author of the scripture? And then audience. What is the, again, expected audience of the scripture or a book? So for instance, I would know that Daron Acemoğlu, which is the author of the Why Nations Fail, is a great economist, Turkish descendant. He will probably get Nobel Prize. But anyway, so it's a great book. I mean, I read it partially. It's a good book. But I never thought, for instance, the author Ajamola would know me, right? So yes, I am part of the audience, but not as a person, not as individual Birkan, but just yet another guy who have some academic background, who may, think about the issues of the author chose to mention in the book. Similarly, I wouldn't expect this Daron Ajamola would know everything about me or everything about whatever the universe or my issues, or sometimes, what he says would fail to be accurate. I mean, these are my expectations, right? I just read the blog for this book. It's just a, let's say coincidence, from Bill Gates, another great mind of our century, who was saying that this book is useless. So anyway, there is this opportunity that the author of such a book, or in general, book is just an example, of course, the author of wisdom, let's say, may fail, and this is what I expect. And I also know that this book would be irrelevant, let's say in 50 years, if not, or if not 20 years, or maybe 100 years at most, right? So it's all about, what I expect from such a source. If my expectation, of course, to know something about, as title says, why nations fail, this book will definitely benefit me. If I want to know the rules of succession in Islamic law, this book, the fourth one, would benefit me. So it's all about, what I'm looking for and from whom I'm looking for. These kind of, I guess, questions, my questions, make difference between these sources. At least, so far, what I understand from people's ideas and my understanding, my ideas on top of. Is there any other comments before we continue? Okay, let's go. So let's see how, by the way, do you see the entire screen, or is it somehow occluded by small screens? Okay. So let's see how Qur'an itself, describe, or at least, suggest that what kind of book it is, what kind of source of knowledge it is. I mean, I'm using the word knowledge, at least for now, because we started with comparing with other books. But later on, we will realize that the Quran is not that, the purpose of Quran is not that at all. Like, it's not to give us some knowledge. But let's start with the single aspect, the author. So Quran says, Abdurrahman, would you like to read the verse for us?
الرحمن الرحيم وإنه لتنزيل رب العالمين.
Thank you. And indeed, it is the revelation of the Lord. Yes, of the revelation of the Lord of the worlds, Rabbil Alamin. So it's not revelation of Dorana Jamol, for instance. What was the name? Anyway, it's not a revelation of Yusuf or Atik. He's the revelation of the Lord of the worlds. So then I guess it makes sense to say, like our initial question was how to read Quran. So one thing, I should read Quran if I have any expectations or any questions to be addressed or answered from the Lord of the worlds, Rabbil Alamin. So up to this point, I'm assuming, we have an understanding of Rabbil Alamin, or Lord of the worlds, and we came to the point. So I'm making all these jumps because of the time. I'm sorry, but we assuming that we came to the point that I have some questions to the Lord of the worlds, or I have some understanding that I am being sustained. So maybe a better translation of Lord would be sustainer. I have an understanding that I am sustained in this world, and there's a sustainer. And when I have a question about my life, about myself, like, what's going on? What's happening to me? I am stuck with my family in a small room, a small house for a few months. I have to work. I have to take care of children. I have to take care of my wife. I have to take care of my mother-in-law. And the same is true for them as well. They have to take care of the children, the child. They take care of myself, which is hard for them, I'm sure. So what's going on? Like, what kind of life I'm in? And why nations fail cannot answer this question. And why I feel anxious from time to time, why I feel happy from time to time. And as soon as I feel happy, this happiness follows by another type of anxiousness. So what's going on in me? What's going on to me? What's happening to me, right? So these kind of questions I can only pose to one who creates all these feelings in me. And again, I'm making all these jumps that I already have an understanding that everything in me, everything about me is being created. So when I have such a question about my sustenance could be food, could be my feelings, could be my well-being. When I have a question about my sustenance, and once I realize that my sustenance is related to everything I know, so I cannot be happy without happiness of my wife. Yesterday, I was telling my wife that I have to write, a part of the grant that I about to propose, submit. So I need time to write it. And she said, if your wife is not happy, forget about the grant. So this is the life, right? So I cannot, so for instance, go to my boss and ask a great idea, which would make my grant proposal a great one, and be happy with it. I cannot be happy because unless my wife is happy, I should forget about writing a grant, right? So this is my reality. So all these connections, so all these necessities, all these needs I have from every word I know. So I'm just, making a allusion to this Rabbil Alamin, Lord of the worlds, in a very narrow sense. But whatever aspect you look into your life, you will see that you need guidance from the Lord of the worlds, the Lord of sustainer of the universe that you live, sustainer of everything that is connected to you. So this is the author who can benefit you, and no one else. So I guess the extent of my problems doesn't have to be in a negative sense, the extent of my questions, let's say, the extent of the possibilities of improvement for myself, extent of possibility of new adventure in life. As the extent increases, and as my understanding of this extent is increases, as I understand that I have this infinite potential to become more and more satisfied with my life, to the extent, I have this understanding, I realize that all the source of guidance, other source of guidance, are not enough for me. But I need a guidance from Lord of the worlds, sustainer of everything I can think of. So this is at least how I understand the importance of the quote-unquote author of the source. So any comments up to this point? Please go ahead. Like again, I was not able to prepare much, so your comments, interactions would be highly appreciated. And please go ahead, Yusuf.
Just the word tanzil in here reminds me of a, and also I guess Atik pointed to that, something coming from high. So it gives the impression of a bird's eye view also, because what I am in need of is a guidance, would be a guidance if it depicts my situation with all its connected, related parts and pieces. I guess in your example, for instance, the happiness of wife versus happiness of boss versus happiness of you is so much interconnected. So if I tell you that forget about boss and everything, just make your wife happy, I mean, this is going to be an imbalanced suggestion. Or if I go the other way around and say that no matter what, it's all about your career, so make your boss happy. I mean, it's going to be partially right, but it's just capturing part of what's happening in there. So my limited view that I am looking at things from the same level as you are doing is not really happening in this regard. So I guess I am in need of a, metaphorically speaking, bird's eye view. So, and Tanzil is just reminding me of this notion also, like Rabbil Alameen is mentioning that the Lord of the Lords, so I'm in need of that, but also it's something from high, meaning that it is not restricted or constrained by the limitations of the issues that I'm going through. So this is something that I'm definitely be interested in.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you. If there are no other comments, I will pass to the next slide. Just a few seconds to see if there are any. Okay, Shanur, please go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment about the world. So before, I never truly understood what worlds meant. It was a question mark for me. Like, I guess I would just thought it meant like, power and things like that. But now, considering like what we were talking about, how I am searching for an author that knows everything about me and that speaks to me directly. And this author, it's not only from like, it also has like let's say a bird's eye view, or it's much more wise than any other human can be. Like, I'm seeking for someone that can help me with in every aspect of my life, in all the worlds of my life. Like, I have many worlds in my life, many different like, emotions and feelings and experiences, and they're all different worlds, like work and then home and then friends, and everything has its own world, and everything is very difficult. Like, you can write books, and there are so many books about everything, but I want one that will be the Lord of all these worlds that I have. So now, like, that this Rabb that I'm looking for also describes himself as a Rabb of all the worlds. It just like fits very well together, because I'm searching for someone that will fulfill me in all my worlds as well.
Thank you. And I guess another way to look at such verses, I mean, this just occurred to me when you asked the question, is like when I read such thing, Rabbil Alamin, the words, the question, of course, is like what words you are talking about, right? I don't have any words around me unless I'm a, one of these physicians, not physicians, sorry, physicists who believe that there are all these parallel universes, whatever. Like I don't see any words, and let alone the words, right? Not only any words, they are like a definite, specific words. I don't have any like interaction or access to such words. What you are talking about? I guess with such verses, Quran reminds me that whatever I interact, like every object in my life or every person in my life is actually a word through the revelation of Quran or through the revelation of my, like a coming from word, my Lord. So a laptop is just a laptop from the revelation. Without revelation. But it becomes a world in front of me to be explored, which has a purpose, which has a meaning, which is being created for me just now in front of me through the revelation. So it becomes a world in itself. My feelings, they become a world in itself that I can explore, that I can go inside and explore. They are not just feelings, I have. I'm angry because, I don't know, she did this or that. No, my anger, a world to be explored. I should go inside and look what to see, and ask the question, what am I going to find there? And this world, like alam, is coming from the same source with the ilm, right? So through revelation, everything in my life becomes something which consists or including ilm. Like I would say knowledge, but it's a dry word. The meaning, purpose, which can be understood by me, which can be experienced by me. The revelation transforms everything in my life into a world that I can explore. So anyway, so let's continue. Abdurrahman, you turned off your video, but I hope that you can read.
وإنك لتلقى القرآن من لدن حكيم عليم.
Okay, another verse, like again, kind of describing the author. And indeed, you receive the Quran from one wise or all wise and all knowing. Hakim Alim. Any initial thoughts? Yusuf, please go ahead. I see your face, making the move of I'm thinking, so I have things to share.
I'm thinking, but I don't have things to share.
Okay, so for the sake of time, like I would just say, this is another, let's say, I don't want to say description, but anyway, this is another suggestion from Quran, defining itself as coming from the all-wise and all-knowing. So we partially mentioned this already, saying that, what I need as a human being, as a birkan, as an individual, as a person, not just any human, but as a person, what I need, the questions and the answers I need for these questions requires someone who is the all-wise and all-knowing, meaning who would know how I can make my wife happy. Not only have to write the best sentence to make the best proposal, but have to make my wife happy. At the same time, have to put my child to sleep. At the same time, have to, satisfy my boss wives, the needs. At the same time, make my lovely friend Yusuf happy and smiling, so on and so forth, right? And it doesn't end. So it has to be all-knowing from my perspective. Like, I'm not trying to describe what all-knowing means, but from my needs perspective, this is what I mean with all-knowing. A guidance who would satisfy my all needs. And another interesting part here is that you receive Quran, right? وَإِنَّكَ. Even like there is an emphasis at the beginning. Indeed you, right? Not someone else. Indeed you that receive this Quran. So meaning, so the question was how to read Quran. So far we said, okay, we should read it as if as a revelation from the sustainer of all the words, the all-wise, all-knowing, but at the same time, I should read it as being revealed to me, as if speaking to me, not again humanity in at large, but to me personally. Of course, if something is speaking to me, it has to speak to all humanity as well, because I am connected to all humanity. Again, my sustenance rely on all humanity's sustenance. I cannot live happily after, while I'm happy, while the rest is unhappy, or let's say, while I find a meaning for myself, while I see everyone else is meaningless. Like, I don't understand why everyone else is being created. It wouldn't work, right? But the emphasis here is to me. So I should read Quran as if it is speaking to me personally. So again, these are not, how to say, like assumptions, or these are not things that I should believe as a start and then start reading Quran, but these are my expectations. My expectation is Quran will speak to me. My expectation is Quran will be from the all-wise and all-knowing. And if it is not, like when I read Quran, I read some verses, try to, read them as if they are speaking to me, and I see that they fail constantly. There is nothing that I can extract for myself. There's nothing that I can say that this is coming from the all-wise. Then definitely I cannot benefit from it. And definitely it is not a Quran for me. Any comments so far? I see Abdurrahman and Ashanur constantly smiling, enjoying. So there must be a great idea in their mind that they enjoy a lot and they want to share, I'm sure.
Well, the one question we did have, and this is just about the grammar of it. So it says Hakim and Alim. It doesn't necessarily say from the all-wise and the all-knowing. So I was just, I was thinking about that. And also, actually, when I first read this, you receive the Quran from one wise and knowing. And first my mind went to who do I receive the Quran from? And like for me, I guess like it just quickly went to the idea of a prophet. Like I didn't like before even thinking that the speech must be from God, from my Lord. It also went to this idea of the prophet, and I thought maybe that might be a reason that it wasn't saying the all-wise and the all-knowing, because it can also include that you can get the Quran from different avenues as well. Otherwise, why we're smiling is just we're enjoying your presentation very much. Thank you.
Oh, so for those who know Arabic, unlike myself, so would it be wrong to translate this ledun Hakim and ledun Alim as specifically from Hakim and Alim, but no one else? If so, that would be another interesting part, putting an emphasis on that, like do not read this as if it's coming from a wise man, or if it's coming from a knowledgeable man, but coming from specifically from and only from the all-wise and all-knowing. Since there's no comment on that, let's forget about what I said because of the possibility of it's being wrong. Yusuf, please go ahead, and then we can continue.
I think also this indefiniteness reminds me of when a wise and a knowing one, but his knowledge or wisdom is not comprehensible by me. Like this indefiniteness is due to me not being able to comprehend the self of the creator or the knowledge of the creator. So it's not something comprehensible. In this sense, unknown. I don't know if this is what it might mean, but in reality, this is the case. When I say knowledge of creator, I do not mean that accumulation of all the knowledge that I can think of multiplied by 1,000. It's not this sort of a issue of magnitude. I know that he must be all knowledgeable, but I don't really know what I mean when I say all knowledgeable. It means what I observe must be coming from some source, which is not anything as I know of. So I guess this indefiniteness.
Thank you, Alhamdulillah. So far we said, okay, the scripture, at least the way it describes itself, the scripture, we studied two aspects. One, author, we said it is the Lord of the worlds, sustainer of the alamin. And also he's the all-wise, all-knowing. There are many other verses similar to saying that, giving some other, let's say, attributes of the author. But I guess in a nutshell, we could say that the author is the one who creates everything in front of me, everything that I experience, everything that I can think of. The author is the one who controls everything, who knows everything, who sees everything, who hears everything. So such a comprehensive links with the creation that I have, that I observe. This is one aspect we studied, and the second aspect is the audience. An audience is me, myself, as a person. So I'm the audience. This book, Quran, is speaking to me, Birkan, living here now in Philadelphia in whatever date is today. I hope it's not too late because I have a deadline. So this is the audience who has his own problems, who has his own ambitions, goals, desires, needs. This is the audience. And I expect the author, who is all wise, all knowing, all seeing, all hearing, all controlling, will speak to me and give me guidance and satisfy my human needs. So this is the expectation when I read Quran. Two aspects we studied. Or let's say any scripture, this is the expectation when I read them. If they cannot satisfy these expectations, they are definitely not coming from these authors, and they are not definitely not for this audience. So another verse about the author, I will just read it and pass due to time. Abdurrahman, please go ahead.
قل أنزله الذي يعلم السر في السماوات والأرض إنه كان غفورا رحيما. You're muted, brother.
Thank you. So say it has been revealed by he who knows secret within the heavens and the earth. Indeed, he is ever forgiving and merciful. So another another verse about who is the author. He's ever forgiving and more merciful, and no secret within the heavens and the earth. So this forgiving, merciful part I want to emphasize with this verse very shortly. When I read Quran, what I expect, again, being forgiven, being realizing that everything is out of forgiveness, out of mercy. So these are the things what I need. If you allow me, these are the main things. These are the core things that I need as a human. Mercy and forgiveness. And whatever you understand from forgiveness, this is the guidance I expect. When I receive this guidance, I would say, okay, now all my past regrets are resolved in front of my eyes, like in my mind. All my past regrets are resolved. All my future worries are illuminated. I feel as if I'm being forgiven. And what I receive through this guidance is nothing but mercy. So when I read Quran, then it shouldn't give me a sense of, let's say, hatred, or it shouldn't give me sense of fear. It shouldn't give me sense of being lost. It should give me sense of being I'm having difficulty making it passive. Forgiven. A sense of forgiven. Sense of mercy. This is what I should be receiving at the end. Again, this is my expectation, and this is how Quran describes itself. If you are ending up something else other than mercy. So after reading Quran, after trying to understanding, after reflecting upon it, and after it is being revealed to you, we will study this being revealed to you, inshallah, next week in more depth. But after you realize that it is being revealed to you, if mercy is not what you end up with, this is not what you are what you need. And Quran says, Birkan, this is what you need, and this is how you should reading me. Oh, there are some comments from Faraz. Let me read them. He shares his understanding of the verses. To first verse, 1, it sets up the expectation that is not a good of some people or religion speaking, and this matches my expectation. It's not a God of, sorry. It sets up the expectation that it is not a God of some people or religion speaking. So, Rabbil Alamin, right? It's not just a God of a specific religion or some people speaking, and it matches my expectation. Second, it gives me a clue to how I might confirm the truth of its message. That is by seeing unity of sustenance. Alhamdulillah. To second verse, I feel it speaks in a puzzling way. My woes are that I don't see knowledge or wisdom in my life, and it challenges this directly, saying this in my false idea, saying this is my false idea. So me not seeing any knowledge or wisdom in my life, it is my false idea, and this is what verse challenges me. It claims that when I get its message, I will see the work of wisdom and knowledge where I didn't before, when I didn't see before. So it is a challenge too much. Oh, so it's a challenge. And then he says, too much noise here, so I cannot speak. Thank you for your sharing. Very helpful, alhamdulillah. Thank you for your sharing, alhamdulillah. It was even more helpful. So if there are no comments about the new verse, we can continue. A few seconds. Okay, alhamdulillah, let's continue. So very similar to the previous verse, now we're talking about what is if we can say, what is the content of Quran? What should I expect, or what is claimed to be included in Quran? And we sent down of the Quran that which is healing and mercy for the believers. Shifa and Rahmah for believers. So another part for, let's say, audience, if you can say, believers, but it's like it's an interesting way to take it that way, because like it go easily astray, and we can start claiming that you can benefit from Quran if you believe in Quran, which is a circular understanding, right? So definitely this is not, this verse is suggesting. So we studied the believers or who can benefit from Quran last week. So if you let me, I wouldn't I would skip this part, what we mean with believers for the sake of time. But I just want to highlight this, that we don't, I don't read it the way, you know, I just described, like you benefit from Quran if you believe in Quran. Rather, being believer is a mindset when I experience things in my life, when I realize that there's something beyond them, and so on and so forth. Again, we discussed this last week. Please forgive me. But the healing and mercy part is really interesting. I really love such verses because it always reminds me that, like, this is the purpose. This is what I expect from a scripture. Like, I need healing and I need mercy because I'm wounded. If I'm, you know, honest myself, if I'm not against my reality, that I am wounded and I need healing. And here comes a source that claims to give me healing. So Quran, as if telling me that, Birkan, you should read these verses, read these scripture as a cure for your wounds, as a cure for your anxieties, as a cure for your worries. And mercy, to see, to realize how everything in life is out of mercy and how your need for mercy is satisfied. So this is a huge challenge, by the way. Like in Quran, having such a verse saying that Quran, which is healing and mercy, is a big challenge because probably, I don't remember, you know, the next verse, but there's a high chance that the next verse will be about hellfire. Or, you know, a few verses before that will be about how unbelievers or how some people will be punished. So how about Quran being healing and mercy then? So such verses, I guess, telling me that, Birkan, even with the verses in which you see hellfire, you shouldn't forget whatever you get from this verse about the hellfire, it should be a healing and mercy for you. If there is no healing and mercy there, you're not reading Quran then. You are just reading a verse from something else, but it's not from Quran. Because everything in Quran is a healing and mercy for you. So this is the purpose, let's say, of the Quran, another aspect of the scripture. Author, audience, the purpose. It is for guidance, healing, and mercy for me. Yusuf, please go ahead.
So, nowadays we were having a conversation with a friend about this word, nazzala, anzala. And in here, in this verse, it's interesting that it is using vanunazzilu, and one of the translators that I was checking, other translation, is mentioning the nuance of this form of the verb, saying that it is coming down like as if in stages, step by step, slowly. And this is how we generally get healing. Let's say when you are sick, doctor prescribes some medicine for you, and you keep using this medicine over time, and eventually, step by step, you improve, or the healing comes to you over time. So it's not happening overnight, but gradually. And now you can also appreciate this gradual transition. So within Quran, for believers, there is this step-by-step or transitioning of this healing that takes place. And to me, this also sounds like in a sense, it's a mercy, because it reminds me of like some bird is with a broken wing in front of you, and you're trying to slowly hold the bird and trying to cure the bird without trying to hurt it. So, but it's a gradual process that's taking place, and it's out of your mercy. And this is how the Quran is saying that your healing is going to happen. So in my relationship with Quran, do I experience such a thing, I'm asking, or do I expect like an overnight change in me, or I am in awe of the beauty of this message, but it's not opening up immediately. But as I keep studying it, to the extent that I realize my neediness, it's as if slowly this healing is coming to me. And there is a mercy in this gradual healing process.
Jazakallah khairan, great point. Also, there's another aspect of this being revealed in parts, which we will study now shortly. And also maybe more details will come next week, inshallah. So next week will be very exciting, by the way. So I can say, so you wouldn't want to miss it. So just as a reminder. So Abdurrahman, please go ahead and.
وقال الذين كفروا لولا نزل عليه القرآن جملة واحدة كذلك لنثبت به فؤادك ورتلناه ترتيلا.
And those who disbelieve say, why was the Quran not revealed to him all at once? Thus it is so, or this is so, that we may strengthen thereby your heart, and we have spaced it distinctly. So let's read the next one as well, Abdurrahman, so we can study them together.
وقرآنا فرقناه لتقرأه على الناس على مكث ونزلناه تنزيلا.
Jazakallah khairan. And it is a Quran which we have separated by intervals, that you might recite it to the people over a prolonged period, and we have sent it down progressively. So both verses talking about the Quran being revealed in parts or progressively. Of course, I'm just touching upon a single aspect of this, word being sent down progressively, continuously. So I will only touch upon, again, like a very tiny part of it, very tiny wisdom in these verses, the way I can see. It's just that in such verses, Quran says that did revelation, the Quran, verses, or speech is progressive because your life is progressive. You receive these verses part by part because this is how you live. Sometimes you need X, sometimes you need Y. And verses speak to you within your time frame. So in another word, I should read Quran as if it is speaking to me right now. This part of the verse is revealed to me, or it's opened up in front of me, the understanding of this verse, just right now. We know that, for instance, from a first, I don't know how to say, like, we could also take such verses as speaking to a prophet, right? So at some time that verses were revealed to him, and he was reciting them to people. And we know that like every verse was revealed after a certain, let's say, fact or event in their life. This is how they understood Quran. This verse revealed to us after such an specific event. And if I can say, this is how I should read Quran as well. Something happens in my life, and this is what verse means to me. It's an explanation, it's an interpretation of the event that I experienced. Just like, you know, the prophet and his companions taking verses. I should take the verse in the same way. This verse speaks to me about the event I just passed through. This verse is about these interesting things that I saw on my way to work. My life is progressive. My needs are changing. My desires, ambitions, changing constantly. And the way the Quran speaks to me changes constantly. Every time I open up the book, it speaks to me in a new way, which also connected to the first part that we discussed, the author. Author is, you remember, right? Author is Lord of the worlds, not anyone who knows what happens in front of me and speaks to me as such. So this is the only part, you know, I wanted to highlight about this progressiveness. There are many other things that beyond my capacity to understand, at least for now. If Lord of the Worlds opens up new meanings to me one day, I will share them with you as well, as this verse also suggests, so that you might recite them. So maybe another aspect of Quran, how am I going to read Quran? I read Quran to benefit and also to share this, whatever benefit I have, with others as well. And it will become another benefit for me as well. Anyway, so just to summarize everything we discussed, so the question was how to read Quran, and we said, okay, we should be careful about our expectations about the author, about the audience, about the content, and about the way it is being explained. So if you have any other points, if you have any other comments, please go ahead. So this is the last slide I have. We can conclude with your insightful, lovely, charming ideas, inshallah. So silence means, oh, go ahead, please, Abdurrahman.
I don't know why you called on me, but alhamdulillah, I enjoyed the presentation. I think that as this verse says that things are revealed over in like periods or progressively, I see that every time we come together to discuss verses, and it just seems that things are literally being brought down to us and revealed, even though you don't know why or how or where. It's just truly just being created as a mercy. And just other, I guess I'll just say what stuck with me, what else stuck with me is this understanding that we can only approach the Quran if we have these, not necessarily questions, but just we need something. We have a need for something more, something else maybe a wound in us, maybe a desire in us. Just, we can't be lifeless when we're approaching the Quran, or emotionless, because then we won't hear it, or we won't be able to have like a dialogue with it. It won't be able to help us. We have to like bring all of us together, like lay our lives out in front of it and truly like approach it that way. And when we do this, if we like, what I need as a human, or what I'm searching for, is this mercy and love and forgiveness. And the Quran says that the speaker, or the Lord, is the one that is merciful, and he is speaking with that wisdom, and you will find that mercy in the Quran. So that's what I should be seeking, or maybe I should question if that is what I am seeking. Like, that's what the kind of introspection I had as we were going through the some of the verses is, am I sitting in front of the Quran like that? Am I seeking forgiveness? Am I seeking mercy? And are these things that I actually care about? And I need to truly think about that. And when I approach the Quran or my Lord, I should have these, like, I should be conscious of this. Thank you.
And one more thing that I wanted to add was, I guess, just going back to, the initial set of questions that you posed to us of what differentiates the Quran from all these other books that we have access to. And I guess it's, this verse now that we're looking at made me think that, a book is something usually that I read, I digest, and, I kind of store somewhere in my mind, perhaps. If I really might like it, if it's a nice novel, I might want to read it another time or a few times. But, guidance is something that I'm going to have to constantly revisit, because I'm constantly in need of it through different periods of my life in different ways and shapes and form. And I think, Abdur Rahman said it correctly in that it will only speak to me most clearly in my times of need. And then when I look at my life, that's all the time. Every moment is a time of need for me. And that's not just something to take and kind of swallow whole and be done with, but something to just, I don't know, experience that prolonged revelation, prolonged, sense of how it's revealed to me through this period of time, continuously throughout various different experiences in my life, something along those lines.
Alhamdulillah, great point, which is also supported, or maybe made even more beautiful by Faraz. He says its reading is in stages. So we talk about this progressiveness. This fact that it's in stages is a clue that the message is to be lived. It should be experienced. It should be lived, not just spoken about or taught about. Alhamdulillah, great. So I want to end here, but so from the beginning to end, we only talked about how to read Quran, and there are of course many ways not to read Quran. We didn't touch upon them much because we wanted to have a constructive discussion rather than destruction. But as a famous anarchist would say, a lust for destruction is also a lust for creation, a creative lust. So maybe we should talk about a little bit how not to read Quran. So as Quran itself suggests, we shouldn't read Quran as stories of old generations. So we shouldn't read Quran as speaking about some historical figures living in some times and going through some events, so on and so forth. This doesn't mean that, you know, I have any reason to deny that these events occurred at that time. But this is not the way I approach Quran. Like, I don't approach Quran to read some historical facts. But I read Quran, I open Quran to get some guidance. Also, I shouldn't read Quran, approach Quran as a rule book, saying that, okay, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, you should do this, whatever. There are certain parts which includes rules in Quran, and yes, I from time to time see that, you know, I should take them as such. But even when I read these rules, they should be about guidance and mercy and healing that I need. So yes, that being said, I guess we can conclude if there are no other comments. Okay, let's conclude, inshallah. Abdurrahman, would you like to conclude the discussion for us?
سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم الحمد لله رب العالمين الفاتحة والسلام.
Thank you, everyone. Again, inshallah, next week we will study very exciting topic. So I hope you will be here again, sharing your ideas. See you next week, inshallah.